Good Monday morning, everybody. I am First Alert Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse, and we are continuing to monitor the storm situation that will start to move closer to our region as the next few hours go on. So I'll be here for about 10 minutes or so. And if you are up early this morning, whether you are just naturally awake at this hour or maybe you have a little more concern about the thunderstorm risk and its impacts on your specific location, well, let's chat for a little bit because we'll guide you through. And it's not just me here, it's the whole team. Reed just walked in. Dave has been here for a few hours helping things out on the digital side and analyzing some of the storms. So you're not going solo on this because the whole team is here for the time being to keep you connected and informed. And I'll be here for about another 10 minutes on this stream to let you know what's been going on. Shirley, good morning to you. Nice to see you. I'm glad that you are following us, as well as Heather. I see a few folks that are beginning to jump on. Heather in Valdosta, wondering if there's going to be any storm worries for the Azalea City. We'll go through all that. I want to go through a set of graphics, a little piece of information to let you know what's going on. And then we'll get to a few of your comments and questions, especially for those who are concerned about their specific location. We'll try to just go through the whole range of the area when we go through these graphics. However, we're going to start off with the zone that has a current tornado watch. Tornado watch simply means that areas within the watch have a higher possibility to have storms that can produce a tornado. Doesn't mean that there is one active right now, but storms can eventually lead to a tornado forming. Those counties are right around the Flint River of southwest Georgia. So Baker and Mitchell County, Decatur County, including Bainbridge, Miller County, which includes the city of Colquitt, and Seminole County, including Donaldsonville. Those counties in southwest Georgia are in the tornado watch. The only Florida counties are west of the Apalachicola River, so Calhoun and Jackson County, Gulf County, and to the west. So the vast majority of our region is not included in North Florida region, that is not included in this watch quite yet. But in southwest Georgia, that's where you do have the risk for some of these storms to maybe produce a tornado, and that watch is in effect until 7 o'clock. Now, there's a higher likelihood that we could see the watch kind of tweaked and extended, which could include more counties, but we're not quite at that phase yet. We have to see how the storms are behaving right now. And right now across our local area, we're still pretty quiet. You may hear the wind howling and blowing and the trees and the branches kind of rustling around, and that's certainly expected when you have breezes that are as consistent as they are. But they're not attached to storms immediately. The nearest storms are beginning to approach areas in southeastern Alabama and the Chattahoochee River a little farther north of our region. They also extend to the southwest into the Florida Panhandle, and we'll outline the areas where we have current active severe thunderstorm warnings. Important to note that those flashing yellow areas, those are severe thunderstorm warnings, and there are no tornado warnings within this batch. However, the storms are being shown to produce gusty winds, and that's why there's this number of warnings across southeast Alabama, and those will start to impact areas of west central Georgia and eventually the southwest Georgia counties before too long. There's also a couple of warnings, in fact, just one warning that includes areas around the Escambia Bay, Pensacola over towards Navarre. So there are some active storms on the southern extent of this as well. And it's that southern flank that we're really going to have to monitor to see how those storms react to the environment around them as they move off in a easterly fashion. Those will be the storms that may come closer to our counties over the next couple of hours, and that can give us some concern for gusty winds of our own. And then with the very strong low-level winds that we are experiencing, the breezy trend, that can certainly support maybe a few more of these storms getting at least organized in an isolated sense and maybe perhaps forming a quick tornado embedded within that line. So let's go through the data of the forecast and focus. Now I would say, considering the current positioning of that line west of Dothan and its projection to be near the tri-state counties within the next couple of hours, seems to be on target. And within some of those individual spots within that broader line, there may be at least a few occasions where the winds may be stronger than the winds being produced in that solid line itself. So what I'm saying is, wind gusts can easily kick up to about 50, 55 miles per hour as the main line of thunderstorms comes through. But there can be at least a few of these little pockets within the thunderstorm line that can exhibit stronger winds and perhaps a little more wind directional change, which can support rotation, can support a tornado. And that's why there is that tornado concern that we have with the overall elements of strong gusty winds and overall disruptive features that this thunderstorm line can create. Now, the forecast in focus tends to bring this line across more of our metro areas around sunrise, 7, 8 o'clock or so. There's still a little bit of wiggle room as far as the timing of that, but that could be a reasonable time to expect some of the storms to approach our more densely populated centers. It'll be earlier in our western areas and later in our eastern zones. And perhaps the storm line can be just a bit weaker as it reaches the Suwannee River area, but still there could be some considerable wind gusts, some lingering clouds, and perhaps a few passing showers that may even stretch beyond midday. But I think our main concern for severe weather will start to fade as we go towards the noon hour in those eastern areas. We don't necessarily have to replay the forecast in focus. We'll go through it again, just a little duplication of the graphic here. But you see the idea has the thunderstorm line pushes from west to east across the area, mostly during the morning. I think in our western half, mostly pre-dawn, around the Highway 319 corridor, sometime around sunrise, give or take a half hour or so. And then in our eastern areas through the rest of the morning, and by midday, the thunderstorm line is shown to be a little less potent. So we will certainly hope for the weaker side of things throughout the entire progression of the line. But at least in the short term, there's still a reasonable expectation to get in on some fairly gusty winds as the line comes through. The breezes, as I've mentioned before, they've been consistently steady, 15, 20 miles per hour, some gusts as high as 30 miles per hour, and that's outside of any thunderstorms. But when the thunderstorms start to push in, that's when we can see the winds accelerate, the wind gusts getting a little bit higher and then beginning to slack off a bit as the morning goes on and that storm line goes through. Another element to keep in mind is just how fast the winds are higher in the atmosphere. When the sun was up, if you looked up, you may have seen some clouds that were just zipping right along from south to north, moving at a very fast rate. And that's an indication that the winds higher in the atmosphere, in the lower few thousand feet, are stronger than what we were feeling here at ground level. That's indeed the case. You go up 5,000 feet and the wind speeds are more like 65, 75, 80 miles per hour, and that can sometimes fuel the thunderstorm risk as well, especially when it comes to the gusty wind output. So there's plenty of legitimate concern, especially the nature of the strong winds around our region, not just here at ground level, but just a few thousand feet up. That can easily help to activate more storm gusts with this line as it comes through. Now, usually at night, there's a little less atmospheric energy that these storms can tap into to build higher heights and create more of that updraft, downdraft cycle that thunderstorms naturally have. But the energy is still lingering in the atmosphere, and that can certainly help to keep these storms on a stronger slant. So we'll have to monitor that aspect of things. Usually at nights, thunderstorms don't really have a lot of support in the atmosphere to keep themselves going. They can fall apart, but that's not the case. There's still considerable amounts of atmospheric energy available, enough to keep some of these thunderstorms producing lightning in an active sense, with maybe some frequent lightning as these thunderstorms start to pass on through. And perhaps within that line of thunderstorms, there can be, as I mentioned, a few of those embedded pockets that can cause a little extra surge of wind motion, wind speed, wind direction, and that can sometimes help to prompt the concern for tornadoes. So the storm strength is kind of variable, but there are several points within our region where we can see maybe a few more of those intense thunderstorm wind gusts and maybe perhaps a brief spin-up tornado within that line. So I don't want to say there will be a tornado at a certain time at a certain location, because it's something that we have to track essentially minute by minute, hour by hour to see how storms will eventually evolve and where they will eventually go. We're getting into that time where those thunderstorms in the Western Panhandle, we can kind of project just how they are behaving and where they're going to go, so we will have a better grasp as far as timing and strength and location for those. But there's a decent chance that many of us will get in on strong wind gusts, easily 50 miles per hour. The severe threshold is 58 miles per hour, so as this thunderstorm line approaches your specific location, you can see the winds pick up quite a bit. So we'll put the wind gust threat and the hazard at the high level of our intensity scale. Tornadoes, we've seen a little less organization with that line, but I don't want to discount the possibility, especially given those winds that I mentioned, that we can still have at least a couple tornadoes that form along the line. If you remember a couple weeks ago, where we had a similar line, different setup, but a similar line that pushed into Madison County, and there were 3 separate touchdowns within the county of tornadoes. So we don't want to undercut the possibility that a tornado can form, not to overhype it either, but just the reality that it is possible. There will be times of heavy rain, but I doubt that it's going to cause flooding, and hail formation within these thunderstorms is a somewhat lower concern as well, not overly concerned about large hail. So again, timing in western areas within the next hour or so, we'll start to get the storms getting closer, and they'll continue to progress to the east through the rest of the morning. And by midday, most of the storms will be in our eastern areas and a little less organized, so a weaker form of storms, but still be aware of the possibility of gusty winds that these storms will create, even above the gusts that we've already encountered before any storms arrive. And again, the possibility for individual points within that thunderstorm line that can cause a tornado to spin up. Most areas will encounter this weather. Not everybody will get the same magnitude of severe weather, but I think as the storm line continues to push, we'll see more of those gusty winds increasing for more areas, and that can certainly spread a little more inclement weather conditions across multiple counties within our region through the next several hours this morning. So that's the quick basic rundown of what's been going on as far as us tracking storms and trying to get a better idea of where they will go and what kind of impacts that we can get. So hopefully you found your location on the map. Some of the cities are listed. And I'll go through some of these comments as some folks have been checking in with a decent number of viewers here on our Facebook live stream at 2 o'clock in the morning. So we certainly appreciate those who are trying to stay connected and trying to get the information. That's what we're here for, to make sure you have the information you need so you can plan accordingly for the rest of the night. Several folks from Havana, someone from Port St. Joe, appreciate those folks who are watching. Even someone from Bluntstown, you're mentioning that the wind is intense and it is hot. And yes, I didn't even show temperatures, but many areas are still in the mid and upper 70s. And I'll try to get that temperature map up here once I find it in my rundown. But there's plenty of warmth to go around. Here's a current look, and early to mid-April, and it's 2 a.m. and it's still 80 degrees in Bainbridge. The heat is part of what's causing some of the energy, the instability to still be present in the atmosphere. It's just incredibly warm, a lot of mugginess, and a lot of wind. So it's the setup that can really cause some of these storms to keep popping. And there's no doubt it is quite warm in our region. And those wind gusts, I think there's a wind map that I have right next to her, not even gusts, but just sustained winds. They've been pretty hefty as well. Latest check of wind speeds, sustained 28 miles per hour in Bainbridge, 30 mile per hour wind in Mariana. So you get the idea. The winds are kicking. There's plenty of motion out there, and as that storm line gets a little closer, that's just going to be more fuel to add to some of these storms as they try to fire off. And the result, at least right now, is a good spread of frequent lightning producers in southeastern Alabama, some strong wind gusts within some of these. And as I mentioned, there's been some warnings that are still up in these areas. And newest warning here for sections of what appears to be Okaloosa, Santa Rosa counties. So these storms are going to continue their march to the west, and they will start to reach our tri-state counties within the next couple of hours ahead. So there's still plenty to monitor. At least the good thing is we don't have any tornado warnings among these, but we'll have to see how those storms will react and behave in the time that we have between now and sunrise to see just how rough these storms can be. So I appreciate those who have been checking in and getting information across our region. I see a person asking about Wakulla County. It does look like perhaps around sunrise. We'll go back to the forecast and focus data and give you an idea of when this particular forecast solution depicts the line coming closer to Wakulla County. And it's still around that sunrise time frame, I'd say 6 to 8 a.m. or so, perhaps a little bit beyond that. And there will be times where the winds will be kicking pretty heavily, and there may be at least some enhancement of those wind gusts once that storm line arrives. So that's the latest. the First Alert weather team is here. We've been on air every half hour to provide updates, even though we don't have any active warnings across our area. We want to make sure if folks are awake and maybe they just flip on the TV and try to see what's going on. Every half hour at 30 minutes and at the top of the hour, we will have an update, even if there's no active weather, just to make sure folks are aware of what's going on. Plus, we'll keep the digital pushes going out, and make sure you have our Storm Shield weather app. It's a free download for your mobile device, and it's free to access the radar tracker as well as to receive notifications of watches or warnings as they are issued for your specific area. You don't have to get a warning for, we'll say, Lowndes County if you live in Gadsden County. You can specify it to find you at your specific location, and it will customize any alerts and messages for your location. So thanks to those who are checking in. We'll check back here on Facebook every so often through the rest of the morning. I think this will probably be my final stream here. Reed and or Dave will probably take over from here when the next Facebook live stream comes into publication here on our WTXL Tallahassee page. So thanks for your efforts to stay informed, and we will certainly continue to do our part to make sure you are informed as our thunderstorms get a little bit closer through the rest of this morning. I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Casanova Nurse. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you later on this morning. Thanks for watching.